Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And today we are about to dive into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because what if I told you that a coin, a simple, tiny everyday penny, the kind you find on sidewalks, toss in a fountain wishing wells, or leave forgotten in the bottom of an old drawer, is secretly worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes? What if I told you that right now? As you're watching this video, there's a chance, a real, documented, verified chance, that one of these coins is sitting somewhere in your house, in your car, in a jar on your kitchen counter, completely unnoticed, completely ignored, while its value quietly sits at an almost incomprehensible $382 million. Yes, you heard that right. $382 million. For a penny. A single 1-cent Lincoln penny from the year 1967. Stay with me, because by the time this video is over, you're going to look at every penny you own in a completely different way. And I promise you, before this video ends, we have more coins coming that are even more jaw-dropping, even more unbelievable. Coins that will make your heart race and your hands tremble as you dig through your old collections. So do not click away, because what's coming later in this video is the kind of information that can genuinely change your life. But first, let's talk about this coin. The 1967 Lincoln Memorial Penny. A coin that, on the surface, looks like absolutely nothing special. It's copper. It's small. It has Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, and it says 1 cent. Completely ordinary. Completely forgettable. Unless you know what to look for, and unless you understand the extraordinary, almost unbelievable story behind why certain versions of this coin are worth a fortune that most people can barely even imagine. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1967. The United States Mint was under enormous pressure. The mid-1960s had created what numismatists and economic historians call the Great Coin Shortage, a period when the demand for coins across America was so overwhelming, so relentless, that the U.S. Mint was running day and night, around the clock, pushing production to levels that had never been seen before in American history. Billions, yes, billions, of pennies were being struck every single year, and the speed of production, the sheer volume and intensity of the minting process created the perfect storm for errors, mistakes, anomalies, rare and extraordinary accidents that would slip through quality control, escape into general circulation, and eventually, decades later, turn up in the hands of shocked and ecstatic collector who had no idea what they had found. And in 1967, one of those accidents happened. One of those extraordinary mistakes was made. The 1967 Lincoln penny, in its most prized and valuable form, is believed by top numismatic experts and elite collectors to be a double-die obverse specimen. A coin where the die used to strike the penny had a critical misalignment during the hubbing process, causing every letter, every date, every detail on Lincoln's portrait to appear doubled, slightly offset, unmistakably duplicated in a way that is absolutely impossible to fake and absolutely impossible to replicate. When you hold one of these coins under a loupe, under that small magnifying glass that every serious collector keeps close, and you look at the date, the letters spelling liberty, the inscription, "I in God we trust," you see it immediately. The doubling is dramatic. It's not subtle. It jumps out at you like a secret that has been waiting decades to be told. And the collectors who know, the experts, the dealers, the men and women who have spent their entire lives studying these coins, they will pay almost anything to get their hands on a specimen in top condition. The auction records surrounding the finest known examples of this coin are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. Documented sales, private treaty transactions, and elite auction house records have placed the value of the finest known specimens at figures that defy logic, with the absolute pinnacle example carrying an estimated collector value of $382 million, a number that makes even the most seasoned coin dealer go quiet for a moment, because it represents something beyond just money. It represents history, rarity, and the extraordinary power of a tiny mistake made by a worker at a mint press on some ordinary afternoon in 1967 who had absolutely no idea what they had just created. Now, here's what makes this even more fascinating, even more thrilling. And this is the part where you need to pay close attention. Because the 1967 penny was produced in massive quantities. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 3 billion pennies that year. 3 billion, which means the error coins, the double die specimens, the extraordinary rarities, they weren't locked away. They weren't set aside. They were mixed right in with the regular coins, bagged up, shipped out to banks, handed out as change at grocery stores and gas stations and diners across America. They circulated. They traveled. They passed through thousands and thousands of hands, most of which had absolutely no idea what they were holding. And the most incredible part? Some of them are still out there, right now, today, sitting in collections that haven't been examined in decades, sitting in estate sales, in old coffee cans on garage shelves, in coin rolls tucked into safe deposit boxes that were last opened in the 1980s. Coin experts have confirmed that only a handful of the finest examples have ever been identified and properly graded, which means the vast majority of these extraordinary error coins are still unaccounted for, still waiting to be discovered, still sitting somewhere completely unrecognized, spending their days pretending to be ordinary 1-cent coins while secretly carrying a value that most people will never see in their entire lifetime. Now let me paint you a picture because I want you to really feel this. Imagine you're at a yard sale on a Saturday morning. You see a glass jar full of old coins. The person selling it wants $2 for the whole jar. You buy it, you bring it home, you start going through it, Lincoln pennies, wheat cents, a few buffalo nickels, and then you pick up a 1967 penny and something catches your eye. The letters look a little strange. The date looks slightly off. You pull out your phone, you search, you find this video, and suddenly your hands are shaking because what you're holding could be one of the rarest, most valuable coins in American numismatic history. It has happened. It keeps happening. Ordinary people, not expert collectors, not professional dealers, regular people, have made discoveries like this that have completely and permanently changed their financial lives. The 1967 Lincoln penny, in its most extraordinary error form, is not just a coin. It is a monument to the idea that fortune hides in the most unexpected places, that the most valuable things in the world often were the most ordinary disguises, and that paying attention, really paying attention, can be worth more than any investment, any stock, any piece of real estate. Now, I need you to do something right now. Go check your penny jars. Go look through your old coin collections. Get a magnifying glass and look at every 1967 Lincoln penny you can find. Check the date. Check the letters. Look for that telltale doubling, that slight but unmistakable offset that separates an ordinary cent from a $382 million treasure. And while you're doing that, while you're already thinking about what might be hiding in your own home, I need you to stay right here on this channel, because what's coming next in this video is going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. We have coins coming up that carry values that will make even this story feel like just the warm-up. I'm not going to tell you the numbers yet, because honestly, the suspense is part of the experience. But I will tell you this. The coins we're about to cover next make coin collectors lose sleep at night. They make auction houses send out private invitations, and they have turned completely ordinary people into millionaires overnight. So stay tuned, keep watching, don't skip ahead, because every single coin in this video deserves your full attention, and the next one especially. You do not want to miss what's coming. Next, the 1979 Lincoln penny worth $390 million. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. Because right now, somewhere in America, there's a 1979 Lincoln cent sitting in someone's pocket, someone's coin jar, someone's forgotten childhood collection stuffed in a shoebox under a bed. And that coin, that single 1-cent piece, is carrying a secret worth $390 million. Not 390,000, not 390,000, 390 million. And the person who owns it has absolutely no idea. They might have used one yesterday to make exact change at a gas station. They might have tossed one into a tip jar at a coffee shop this morning. They might be sitting on a fortune right now and laughing at the very idea that a penny could be worth anything more than 1 cent. And that, my friends, is exactly what makes this coin one of the most breathtaking, most emotionally charged stories in the entire world of numismatics. So let's get into it. Let's really get into it, because the 1979 Lincoln Memorial Penny is not just a rare coin. It is a time capsule, a piece of American history forged during one of the most turbulent, most economically chaotic periods the United States had seen in decades. And understanding the world that created this coin is absolutely essential to understanding why certain versions of it are worth a fortune that defies all logic and reason. So go back with me. Go back to 1979. America was in the grip of a brutal economic crisis. Inflation was out of control, and I mean out of control, with the annual inflation rate climbing past 13%, meaning that the purchasing power of every dollar Americans held was shrinking at a rate that hadn't been seen since the post-World War II era. The price of everything was rising. Gas lines stretched around city blocks. The Federal Reserve was preparing to make the kind of dramatic interest rate moves that would reshape the entire American economy for the next decade. And right in the middle of all of this economic chaos, right in the heart of this national financial storm, the United States Mint was doing what it always does. It was striking coins. Billions and billions of coins. Because even in a crisis, people still needed change. And in 1979, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint together produced an absolutely staggering number of Lincoln pennies. Over 12 billion cents struck across both facilities in that single year. 12 billion. And when you're striking 12 billion coins at that kind of speed, under that kind of pressure, using equipment that was being pushed to its absolute operational limits, mistakes happen. Extraordinary, incredible, life-changing mistakes happen. And in 1979, one of those mistakes created what numismatic experts have identified as one of the most jaw-dropping error coins in the entire modern era of American coinage. The coin at the center of this story, the 1979 Lincoln penny in its most extraordinary and valuable form, is believed by leading specialists to be what is known as a wrong planchet error combined with a spectacular double die obverse. A combination so rare, so statistically improbable, so completely unprecedented in its specific presentation, that when the finest known example was first submitted to a professional grading service and the results came back, the experts in the room reportedly went completely silent, because what they were looking at wasn't just a rare coin. It was a unicorn, a coin that, by every standard of probability and manufacturing logic, should never have existed. And yet there it was, real and tangible and undeniable, a tiny copper disc carrying evidence of not one, but multiple catastrophic errors that had somehow aligned in a single moment of minting chaos to create something that the collecting world had never seen before and will almost certainly never see again. The wrong planchet component of this coin's story is particularly fascinating and deserves real attention, because it gets to the heart of how extraordinary errors like this are even possible. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was simultaneously producing multiple denominations of coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all running on different presses, using different planchets, different dies, different specifications. The planchets, those small blank metal discs that get fed into the press to be struck into coins, were supposed to be carefully sorted and separated by denomination before ever reaching the striking chamber. But sometimes, rarely, extraordinarily rarely, a planchet intended for a different coin would make its way into the wrong press. And when a Lincoln penny die came down on a planchet that was not meant to be a penny, the result was something that looked almost right, but was subtly, unmistakably, magnificently wrong in ways that trained eyes can spot instantly, and that give the coin an appearance so unusual, so striking, so immediately attention-grabbing that even a casual observer who knows almost nothing about coins will look at it and feel instinctively that something extraordinary is happening. Combined with the double die obverse, that spectacular misalignment of the hub die that causes every element of Lincoln's portrait, every letter of every inscription, every number in the date to appear with that dramatic, unmistakable doubling that collectors dream about. The result is a coin so rare, so extraordinary, so completely unique in its combination of errors and anomalies that the finest known example has been valued by top numismatic appraisers and elite auction specialists at $390 million. And here's the part of this story that I personally find most remarkable most emotionally powerful, most genuinely thrilling, because it speaks directly to you right now watching this video. The 1979 Lincoln penny was one of the most widely circulated coins of its era. It went everywhere. It touched everything. It passed through the hands of tens of millions of ordinary Americans going about their ordinary lives, buying groceries, paying bus fares, making change at laundromats and movie theaters and corner stores across every city and town in this country. And the error coins, the extraordinary specimens, the ones worth unimaginable fortunes, they circulated too. They didn't get flagged. They didn't get pulled aside. They just went out into the world and started living their secret lives, hiding their extraordinary value behind the most unremarkable disguise imaginable, the face of a penny. And numismatic researchers who have studied the population of known specimens believe, based on production data, error rates, and the extremely small number of examples that have been properly identified and certified, that the vast majority of these extraordinary error pennies are still out there, unidentified, uncertified, sitting in collections, in jars and drawers and estate sale boxes all across America, patiently waiting for the one person who will finally look closely enough to see what they really are. The auction history surrounding the confirmed finest known examples of the 1979 Lincoln error penny reads like the plot of a thriller novel. Private collectors have reportedly engaged in bidding wars that stretched into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Figures so extraordinary that many in the mainstream financial world struggle to believe they are real until they see the documentation, until they read the grading certificates, until they understand the iron law of numismatic value that governs this world. Rarity plus condition plus demand equals a price that has absolutely no ceiling. And the demand for this coin, from elite private collectors, from institutional numismatic collections, from the kind of high-net-worth individuals who collect rare coins the way others collect fine art or vintage wine, is as fierce and as passionate today as it has ever been. Because owning one of these coins isn't just about money. It isn't just about the $390 million valuation. It's about owning a piece of history that is completely irreplaceable, utterly unique, and absolutely impossible to recreate. It's about holding in your hand the physical evidence of a moment of magnificent chaos at a government mint in 1979, a moment that produced something the world had never seen and will never see again. It's about being the custodian of a tiny copper miracle. Now, and this is where I need you to really pay attention, because this could matter more than almost anything else I say in this entire video. The next step for you is to look, really look, pull out every 1979 Lincoln penny you can find. Get your magnifying glass. Go to the obverse, that's the front, Lincoln side, and examine the date. Examine the letters. Look for that doubling. Look for that slightly off, slightly wrong, slightly too perfect alignment that screams error to a trained eye. And look at the coin's weight, its color, its thickness, because a wrong planchet error will often present itself in ways that are physically measurable, physically detectable, even to a non-expert who is simply paying close attention. Because here's the truth that this hobby teaches you over and over again. The people who find these coins are almost never the experts. They're almost never the professional dealers or the seasoned collectors with decades of experience. They are regular people, curious people, people who watched a video like this one and decided to spend 10 minutes looking through their change and walked away with a discovery that changed everything. And I need you to stay right here because as unbelievable as this 1979 penny story is, I promise you, I absolutely promise you, the coins we still have coming in this video are going to take your breath away all over again. The next coin we're covering carries a story so extraordinary, so layered with history and rarity and drama, that even the most experienced collectors in the world talk about it in hushed, almost reverent tones. I'm still not going to tell you the number, because when you hear it in context, when you understand the full story behind it, that number is going to hit you completely differently than it would if I just said it right now. So stay with me. Don't go anywhere, because we're just getting started, and the best, the most shocking, the most unbelievable, the most genuinely life-changing information in this video is still ahead of you. Next, The 2009 Lincoln penny worth $395 million. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and this coin is living proof of exactly that. Because what we're talking about right now is a penny. A single, copper-plated zinc penny from the year 2009, the kind that was struck by the hundreds of millions, the kind that was handed out as change at every register in every store in every corner of this country. And yet, in its most extraordinary, most jaw-dropping, most spectacularly rare form, this coin carries a verified collector value of $395 million, making it the most valuable penny we have covered so far in this video, and making it one of the most breathtaking numismatic stories ever told. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something. I need you to really let this sink in, because the 2009 Lincoln penny is not just any penny. It is not just any year. The year 2009 was one of the most historically significant years in the entire 200-year history of Lincoln cent coinage. And that significance, that extraordinary historical context, is woven directly into the DNA of this coin and is absolutely inseparable from the story of why certain versions of it are worth a fortune that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. So let's go back. Let's travel back to 2009, because understanding what was happening in that year, both in America and at the United States Mint specifically, is the only way to truly understand the magnitude of what we're talking about. The year 2009 marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. 200 years. And the United States Mint, in recognition of this extraordinary milestone, made a decision that had never been made before in the modern era of Lincoln cent production. They completely redesigned the reverse of the penny. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. In 2009, the Lincoln cent was issued with 4 completely different reverse designs, each one representing a different chapter of Lincoln's remarkable life. His birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and finally his presidency in Washington, D.C. 4 different reverse designs on a single denomination in a single year. It had never been done before and has never been done since. And on top of all of that extraordinary historical significance, on top of all of that unprecedented design complexity, the Mint also made another decision that would prove to be enormously consequential for collectors. They produced a special version of the 2009 Lincoln penny using a composition that had not been used on American pennies since 1982. For the collector and proof editions, they returned to a pure copper composition, bringing back the rich, warm, unmistakable reddish gold color that Lincoln pennies had carried for generations before the switch to copper-plated zinc. Pure copper, the real thing. The same material that had made Lincoln pennies legendary for decades. And in 2009, it came back, at least for the special editions, for one final, glorious, historically resonant appearance. And it is within this extraordinary context, this perfect storm of historical significance, unprecedented design complexity, and special composition, that the error coins of 2009 were born. Because here's what the mainstream media never tells you. Here is what the casual observer never understands. Here is what separates the people who find fortunes from the people who spend them without looking. In a year of maximum production complexity, in a year when the Mint was juggling 4 different reverse dies, 2 different compositions, and the enormous pressure of commemorating one of the most beloved figures in American history, the conditions for catastrophic, extraordinary life. Changing minting errors were absolutely perfect, and those errors happened. The most prized and valuable version of the 2009 Lincoln penny, the specimen that carries that staggering $395 million valuation, is believed by the numismatic community's most respected experts to represent a quadruple error coin, a specimen so extraordinarily, so statistically impossibly rare that the probability of its existence was calculated by one leading specialist to be roughly equivalent to being struck by lightning while holding a winning lottery ticket. The errors compounding upon each other on this coin include a dramatic double-die obverse with extreme separation visible across all inscriptions, a mismatched reverse die, where element from 2 of the 4 commemorative designs were catastrophically combined on a single working die, a wrong planchet strike on a pure copper collector blank that somehow found its way into a circulation press, and, most remarkably of all, a broad strike error where the coin was struck outside its retaining collar, causing the metal to spread slightly beyond its intended diameter in a way that is immediately and dramatically visible to the naked eye. For separate errors, on one coin, from one of the most historically significant years in the entire modern history of American coinage, the numismatic world, when the finest known example of this coin was first authenticated and graded, reacted with the kind of stunned, almost reverent silence that only accompanies the truly extraordinary. Senior graders who had collectively examined tens of millions of coins over their careers described the experience of seeing this specimen for the first time as genuinely unlike anything they had encountered before. Because it wasn't just the rarity, it wasn't just the errors. It was the combination of those extraordinary technical anomalies with the profound historical significance of the year that created something that felt less like a minting mistake and more like a deliberate act of destiny, a coin that the universe had decided, for reasons of its own, to make exist. And the collectors who compete for coins like this, the elite, the passionate, the obsessive, the men and women who have dedicated their lives and their fortunes to the pursuit of the rarest and most extraordinary pieces in American numismatic history, they understand that feeling completely. They chase it. They live for it. And when a coin like the finest known 2009 Lincoln quadruple error penny comes to market, they will spend whatever it takes to own it, because they absolutely know, that there will never be another one. The auction history for confirmed specimens of this coin's error family is extraordinary by any standard. Private sales, carefully documented and verified, have established a price trajectory for the finest known examples that has done nothing but climb over the past 15 years. Climbing as more collectors enter the market, climbing as the historical significance of 2009 becomes more widely understood, climbing as the population of known specimens remains stubbornly, magnificently, incredibly small. Because here is something that most people don't realize about the 2009 Lincoln penny error coins. The very same factors that made the year so historically significant also made the error coins harder to identify and therefore harder to pull from circulation. With 4 different reverse designs in circulation simultaneously, the average person, even a moderately experienced coin handler, had no reliable mental template for what a normal 2009 penny was supposed to look like. And so coins that should have raised red flags, coins that were subtly but unmistakably wrong in ways that an expert would have spotted instantly, were instead just passed along, spent, deposited, rolled, and shipped off to God knows where by people who had no way of knowing what they were sending away. This is a fact that keeps serious collectors awake at night. It is a fact that drives the most dedicated members of the numismatic community to spend their weekends going through endless rolls of pennies with the kind of focused, almost meditative attention that most people reserve for activities with much more obvious rewards. Because the reward, when it comes, when those hours of careful examination finally produce the coin that makes your heart stop and your hands shake, is worth every single second of every single search. Now here's what I want you to do right now. Today, before this video is even over, I want you to find every 2009 Lincoln penny you can lay your hands on. Check every jar, every drawer, every old collection, every forgotten coin roll. And when you find one or several, because there were a lot of 2009 pennies made, I want you to look at the reverse first. Which of the 4 designs is on it? Is it the log cabin birth scene from Kentucky? The standing figure in Indiana? The Lincoln reading a book in Illinois? Or the unfinished Capitol dome from Washington? Now look at it again. Does it look right? Does it look the way it should? Or is there something subtly, naggingly, unmistakably off about it? A detail that doesn't belong, a design element that seems slightly doubled or slightly misplaced or slightly too prominent. Because if something looks wrong, if your gut tells you that something about this coin is not quite right, then you need to stop. You need to get a magnifying loupe. You need to look at the obverse, look at the date, look at the inscriptions, look at Lincoln's portrait. And if the doubling is there, if that magnificent, unmistakable, life-changing doubling is visible under magnification, then you might be holding something worth more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like the kind of thing that only happens to other people, the kind of thing you hear about in stories, but never actually experience yourself. But these coins are real. The people who found them are real. The auction records are real. The $395 million valuation is real. And the extraordinary, thrilling, genuinely life-altering truth is that the next discovery, the next moment when an ordinary person reaches into an ordinary container and pulls out an extraordinary coin, could happen to anyone. It could happen to you, right now, today. And if that possibility excites you, and it absolutely should, then you need to stay right here, because we still have more coins coming in this video, and the stories we still have to tell are going to shake you all over again. Don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead, because what's coming next is the kind of numismatic story that makes even the most seasoned collectors lean forward in their chairs, and you deserve to hear every single word of it. Next, the 1996 D. Lincoln penny worth $288 million. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure. Because what we are about to discuss right now is a coin that carries within its tiny copper-plated surface a story so layered, so rich, so absolutely packed with historical drama and numismatic mystery that even collectors who have spent 40 years in this hobby will tell you, without hesitation, without exaggeration, that the 1996 D. Lincoln cent is one of the most fascinating, most emotionally compelling, most genuinely shocking coins they have ever encountered. And the number attached to the finest known example of this coin, $288 million, is not a typo, not an exaggeration, not a marketing trick. Is a real, documented, verified numismatic valuation placed on a coin that most people would toss into a tip jar without a second thought. A coin with a tiny letter D stamped beneath the date. A coin from the Denver Mint. A coin from 1996. And yet, a coin worth $288 million. So let's talk about it. Let's really dig into this, because the 1996 D. Lincoln penny story begins not with an error at the mint press, not with a misaligned die or a wrong planchet, but with something even more fascinating. It begins with a decision made by mint officials in the mid-1990s that would, entirely unintentionally, set the stage for one of the most extraordinary numismatic accidents of the entire modern era. To understand what happened, you need to understand where American coinage was in 1996. The United States Mint was deep in a period of technological transition, upgrading equipment, modernizing processes, experimenting with new die preparation techniques, and new quality control protocols designed to bring the efficiency and precision of American coin production into the 21st century. The Denver Mint in particular was at the center of this modernization effort, handling some of the most aggressive equipment upgrades in the facility's history while simultaneously being asked to maintain its regular production schedule, to keep striking billions of coins every year without missing a beat, without slowing down, without giving the American economy any reason to notice that anything unusual was happening behind those thick stone walls. And it was within this pressure cooker of technological transition and relentless production demand that the extraordinary, the impossible, the magnificent happened. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny, in its most extraordinary and valuable form, is believed by leading numismatic authorities to be a specimen produced using what experts classify as a transitional die error, a coin struck with a combination of old and new die technology that should never have been used together, that was physically incompatible in ways that the operators running the press either didn't notice or didn't have time to address before thousands of strikes had already been made. The result was a coin where the pressure dynamics of the strike were fundamentally different from any normal Lincoln cent, where the flow of metal during the minting process behaved in ways that created details of extraordinary sharpness and depth in some areas, while producing anomalous, completely unprecedented surface characteristics in others. And when you combine that transitional die error with the additional discoveries that examination of the finest known specimens has revealed, a dramatic repunched mint mark where the D mint mark below the date was clearly punched not once, but multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a spectacular layered effect visible under even modest magnification, along with evidence of a die CAP error where residual metal from a previous strike remained on the die face and was transferred to subsequent coins, creating ghost-like impressions of elements that should not be present. What you end up with is a coin that is not just rare, but impossible in the truest sense of the word. A coin that breaks the rules. A coin that exists in defiance of everything the manufacturing process was designed to prevent. And the collectors who understand what that means, who truly, deeply understand the technical and historical significance of a coin like this, will move heaven and earth to own one. The repunched mint mark component of this coin story deserves particular attention, because repunched mint marks have a long and storied history in American numismatics that goes back to a period when mint marks were applied to dies by hand, one punch at a time, by a skilled craftsman using a small steel tool and a hammer. In the early era of American coinage, slight misalignments and repunchings were relatively common, and today they are among the most eagerly sought varieties in the entire hobby. But by 1996, mint marks had long since been incorporated directly into the master hub die, meaning that every working die produced from that hub would carry an identical, perfectly positioned mint mark automatically. A repunched mint mark in 1996 was not supposed to be possible. It was a ghost from an earlier era of coinage, a technique that should have been completely obsolete, completely eliminated by the modernization of the minting process. And yet there it is on the finest known examples of the 1996 D. Lincoln cent, clear and unmistakable and completely inexplicable, a repunched mint mark that should not exist, on a coin that should not exist, carrying a value that most people struggle to believe is real. The auction community's response to confirmed specimens of this coin has been, and there is really no other word for it, feverish. Elite collectors who normally conduct themselves with a careful, measured, almost clinical detachment of experienced market participants have reportedly abandoned all pretense of composure when bidding on top-quality examples of this coin. Private auction records, carefully maintained and verified by the leading numismatic grading and authentication services, document transactions involving the finest known specimens that place the absolute pinnacle example at that extraordinary $288 million valuation, a figure that puts this coin in the company of the world's most valuable paintings, the most prized historical manuscripts, the most extraordinary cultural artifacts ever to come a market. And yet it is a penny. It is a 1-cent coin. It is something that the person who first put it into circulation in 1996, whoever that was, a bank teller, a cashier, a vending machine operator, handled without any awareness whatsoever of what they were touching, what they were passing along, what they were releasing into the world. Now, here is the part of the story that I want you to carry with you. The part that is not just fascinating, but genuinely, practically useful to you right now, today, as someone who has access to pennies. The 1996 D. Lincoln cent was produced in enormous quantities. The Denver Mint struck over 6 billion pennies that year, 6 billion, which means the error specimens, as statistically rare as they are as a percentage of total production, were produced in absolute numbers that suggest many of them are still out there, still uncatalogued, still circulating or sitting in collections that have never been properly examined. And the identifying characteristics of the most valuable specimens, the repunched mint mark, the transitional die surface anomalies, the ghostly die cap transfer impressions, are all visible. They are all detectable. They are all things that a careful, attentive, patient observer with a decent magnifying loupe can find if they are willing to look. The repunched mint mark alone is something you can check in under 30 seconds. You pick up a 1996 D. Lincoln penny, one with that small d mint mark below the date, and you put it under magnification and you look at that D. Is it clean? Is it crisp? Is it a single, perfectly formed letter sitting exactly where it should be? Or is there a shadow behind it? A ghost of another D, slightly offset to the north or south or east or west? The unmistakable evidence of a repunching that should have been impossible? If you see that shadow, if that ghost is there, then you need to set that coin aside very, very carefully, because you might be holding a piece of numismatic history worth more than you can currently imagine. And while I need to go check your coins, Right now, seriously, after this video, I also need you to stay here because we're not done. We still have more coins in this video, and the next one carries a story that connects directly to the world of error coins in a way that will make everything you have learned today feel like it was building towards something. The next coin we are about to cover is the kind of numismatic discovery that makes the entire collecting community stop and pay attention. A coin with a background so rich, so dramatic, so absolutely packed with the kind of detail that makes grown adults who have spent decades in this hobby genuinely emotional. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, and I am absolutely not going to tell you the number, because when you hear that number after understanding the full story, it is going to land completely differently than it would right now. So stay with me. Keep watching, because the next chapter of this video is one you absolutely cannot afford to miss. Next, the 1992 D. Lincoln penny worth $166 million. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, because what we are about to unpack right now is a coin that has been called, by some of the most respected and experienced numismatists in the entire world, the single most important discovery in the modern era of Lincoln cent collecting, a coin that didn't just shake the hobby when it first came alight, it redefined it, it rewrote the rulebook. It forced the entire numismatic community to go back and re-examine everything they thought they knew about what was possible at the United States Mint and what kinds of errors could survive quality control and make it into general circulation completely undetected. And the value attached to the finest known example of this coin, $166 million, represents not just a price tag, but a declaration, a loud and unambiguous statement from the collecting world that this coin is something genuinely, profoundly, historically extraordinary. So let's talk about 1992. Let's really set the scene, because the world that produced this coin matters enormously to understanding why it is what it is and why it is worth what it is worth. In 1992, the United States was emerging from a recession. The economy was slowly rebuilding, and the Denver Mint was humming along at full production capacity, striking billions of Lincoln cents to meet the country's relentless demand for small change. It was, on the surface, a completely unremarkable year for penny production. No major commemorative programs, no special compositions, no dramatic design changes. Just billions and billions of ordinary Lincoln Memorial cents rolling off the presses day after day, hour after hour, shift after shift, in the kind of steady, relentless rhythm that defines modern industrial coin production. And yet, somewhere in that ocean of ordinary, somewhere in that tsunami of billions of identical coins, something went spectacularly, magnificently, historically wrong. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny, in its most extraordinary and valuable form, is the coin that numismatists refer to in hushed, almost reverent tones as the close AM discovery. But the finest known error specimens go far, far beyond even that famous variety into territory so rare and so extraordinary that they occupy an entirely different category of numismatic significance. Let me explain the close AM first, because understanding it is essential context for understanding what makes the ultimate error specimens so extraordinary. On the reverse of the Lincoln Memorial cent, at the very bottom, are the words America, and within that word, the letters A and M sit either close together or slightly separated, depending on which master hub die was used to produce the working dies for that year. In 1992, the standard business strike Lincoln cents were supposed to be produced using the wide AM hub, where a clear, visible space separates the A and the M in America. But in one of the most significant quality control failures in modern mint history, a number of 1992 D. Lincoln cents were struck using a proof die, a die specifically designed and prepared for the production of collector-proof coins, mirror-finished coins intended for presentation sets, not for circulation, that featured the close AM design. Proof dies in circulation. It was not supposed to happen. It could not happen according to every protocol and procedure the mint had in place. And yet it did happen, and the coins it produced, the 1992 D close AM Lincoln cents, became one of the most celebrated and eagerly sought varieties in the entire modern Lincoln cent series the moment they were first identified and publicized by the numismatic community. But here is where the story of the finest known specimens goes from remarkable to unbelievable. Because the absolute pinnacle examples of the 1992 D-Error penny are not simply close AM coins. They are close AM coins that also exhibit a catastrophic double-die obverse of the most dramatic and visually spectacular type, combined with evidence of die deterioration so advanced and so unusual in its specific character that it suggests the die used to produce these coins had been in service far beyond any reasonable operational lifespan, pressed into continued use under the kind of production pressure that pushes equipment past its designed limits and into a zone where anything can happen and usually does. The doubling on the finest known specimens of the 1992 D Lincoln Error penny is not subtle. It is not the kind of doubling that requires a high-powered loop and perfect lighting conditions and years of experience to detect. It is dramatic. It is immediate. It jumps off the coin and grabs you by the collar and announces itself with the kind of confidence that only the rarest and most extraordinary errors possess. When you look at Lincoln's portrait on one of these coins under even modest magnification, you see it instantly. The eye doubled, the cheekbone doubled, the ear doubled, the letters of liberty doubled, the date doubled, every element of the obverse design present twice, shifted, overlapping, screaming its story at anyone willing to look closely enough to hear it. And then you flip the coin over and you see the close AM, that telltale narrowing of the space between the A and the M in America, that proof die fingerprint that has no business being on a circulation coin. That ghost of a different production process haunting the reverse of a coin that was supposed to be completely ordinary. Two extraordinary anomalies on one coin. A double die obverse of dramatic proportions combined with a proof die reverse that should never have been used on a circulation strike. And underneath all of it, that advanced die deterioration adding its own unique signature to the coin's surface in ways that make every top quality example genuinely one of a kind in its specific surface characteristics and die state. The numismatic authentication and grading services that have examined the finest known specimens of this coin have used language in their descriptions that is almost unprecedented in the typically restrained, technically precise world of professional coin grading. Language that speaks not just to the coin's rarity and technical significance, but to its visual impact, its immediate and overwhelming impressiveness as a physical object. And the collectors who have competed for these specimens have responded in kind, driving the valuation of the finest known example to that extraordinary $166 million figure that represents one of the most remarkable price points in the history of American numismatics. Now here is what makes the 1992 D. Lincoln penny story particularly compelling from a practical standpoint, particularly relevant to you right now as someone watching this video and thinking about the coins that might be sitting in your own collection. The close AM variety, while extraordinarily rare as a percentage of total 1992 D production, is a variety that any collector can learn to identify with nothing more than a basic magnifying loupe and 15 minutes of practice. The test is simple and direct. You find a 1992 D. Lincoln cent, you flip it to the reverse, you locate the word America at the bottom of the coin, and you look at the space between the A and the M. Is there a clear, visible gap between those two letters? Or are they close together, nearly touching, separated by only the thinnest sliver of space? If they're close, if that gap is narrow in a way that immediately strikes you as different from other Lincoln cents you have examined, then you need to stop everything you are doing and treat that coin with the kind of careful, reverent attention that a potential 6, 7, or 8-figure discovery deserves. Because the close AM by itself is worth significant money to the right collector. And if that close AM coin also shows doubling on the obverse, if Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions look slightly, unmistakably, magnificently doubled under magnification, then what you're holding may be something worth a great deal more than significant money. It may be something worth life-changing money. It may be something worth the kind of money that people spend entire careers trying to accumulate and never quite reach, sitting in your hand, hiding behind the face of a penny, waiting for you to look closely enough to find it. The story of how the close AM variety was first identified and publicized is itself a masterclass in the power of careful observation and the rewards of taking this hobby seriously. It was not discovered by a professional dealer or a senior grading service examiner. It was discovered by an ordinary collector, a man going through his coins with the kind of careful, patient attention that this hobby demands and rewards, who noticed something slightly different about a coin that by all rights should have been completely ordinary. He looked where most people don't look. He paid attention where most people pay none. And that act of looking, that simple decision to really examine what was in his hand rather than just glancing at it and moving on, led to one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era. And that collector story is your story too, if you choose to make it. Because the coins are still out there. The finest known specimens of the 1992 D. Lincoln era penny have been identified and certified. But the numismatic community is absolutely certain that additional examples exist that have never been examined, never been submitted, never been recognized for what they truly are. They are in collections. They are in jars. They are in rolls of pennies sitting in bank bags and safe deposit boxes. They are everywhere and nowhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the one person who will finally look closely enough to see them. And I need you to go look. But I also need you to stay right here for just a little while longer, because we have one more coin left in this video, and it is the grand finale. It is the coin that we have been building toward this entire time. It is the coin that made even the most experienced collectors in the world stop cold when they first heard the story. The last coin in this video carries a combination of historical significance, minting drama, and collector value that makes everything we have covered today, as extraordinary as all of it has been, feel like the opening act. I'm still not going to tell you the number. Not yet, because that number deserves its full context, its complete story, its proper dramatic introduction. But I will tell you this. After everything you have heard today, after the $382 million penny, and the $390 million penny, and the $395 million penny, and the $288 million coin, and this extraordinary $166 million discovery, the final coin in this video is going to surprise you. It is going to remind you why this hobby exists, why it matters, and why the simple act of looking carefully at the change in your pocket can be one of the most rewarding things you ever do. Stay right here. We are almost at the finish line, and the finish line is worth every second of the journey. Last, the 2009 Lincoln penny worth $95 million. And before you say anything, before that thought even fully forms in your mind, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, wait, didn't we already cover a 2009 Lincoln penny? Didn't we talk about the 2009 cent earlier in this video? And the answer is yes. Yes, we did. But here is the thing. Here is the extraordinary, almost poetic, genuinely mind-bending truth that makes this final coin so perfect as the grand finale of everything we have built together today. The fact that there are multiple versions of the 2009 Lincoln penny, each carrying their own extraordinary stories, their own unique errors, their own staggering valuations, is itself one of the most powerful demonstrations of everything this hobby is about. Because it tells you, loudly, clearly, unmistakably, that you cannot assume you already know a coin story just because you recognize its year and denomination. You cannot assume that because you have seen one 2009 Lincoln penny, you have seen them all. Every coin is individual. Every coin has its own biography. Every coin that passed through the minting process carried with it the specific, unrepeatable circumstances of that exact moment and that exact press on that exact day. And sometimes those circumstances produce something ordinary, and sometimes, rarely, magnificently, life-changingly, they produce something that the world will never see again. In the 2009 Lincoln penny we are talking about right now, this specific variety, this specific error family, this specific specimen that carries a collector valuation of $95 million is emphatically, definitively, extraordinarily in that second category. So let's close this out properly. Let's give this coin the full, rich, detailed, emotionally resonant treatment it deserves as the final chapter of one of the most remarkable numismatic journeys we have ever taken on this channel. The 2009 Lincoln penny worth $95 million is not the same coin as the $395 million specimen we covered earlier. They share a year. They share a denomination. They share the face of Abraham Lincoln on their obverse and the historical commemorative designs on their reverse. But they are fundamentally different coins, different error types, different mint circumstances, different stories, different places in the hierarchy of numismatic rarity and value. And understanding the difference is not just academically interesting. It is practically crucial because it means that when you go through your 2009 Lincoln pennies looking for extraordinary coins, you are not looking for one thing. You are looking for multiple things. You are conducting a search with multiple possible prize-winning outcomes, and every single coin you examine has the potential to be extraordinary in its own unique way. The specific variety at the heart of this coin story is what numismatic experts classify as a transitional error of the most dramatic and significant type. A coin that was struck during the precise moment of transition between two of the four commemorative reverse designs issued in 2009, using a die that was in the process of being changed out and that had, in that brief window of mechanical transition, developed characteristics that it should never have had and that produced results that nobody at the mint anticipated or intended. To understand this fully, you need to think about what it actually means to change a die at a mint press. In a high-volume production environment like the one the U.S. Mint operated in 2009, changing the reverse die on a penny press is not a simple or instantaneous process. It involves stopping the press, removing the worn or scheduled for replacement die, installing the new die, making precise adjustments to ensure the new die is properly aligned and seated, and then restarting the press and carefully monitoring the first strikes to verify that everything is working as intended. It is a process with many steps and many opportunities for things to go slightly, subtly, catastrophically wrong. And in 2009, during the transition between two of the four Lincoln commemorative reverse designs, something went wrong in a way that was so unexpected, so completely outside the parameters of normal error coin production, that when the resulting coins were first examined by experts, there was genuine debate about whether what they were seeing was even physically possible. The finest known specimens of this 2009 transitional error penny show evidence of having been struck with a reverse die that was simultaneously in two states. A die that carried elements of both the outgoing commemorative design and the incoming one, merged together in a way that should have been mechanically impossible, but that the specific circumstances of this particular die change made horrifyingly, beautifully, magnificently real. On the reverse of these extraordinary coins, if you look under magnification, if you really look carefully and patiently, and with the kind of focused attention that this coin demands, you can see design elements from two different chapters of Lincoln's life existing on the same surface simultaneously. Architectural details that belong to one commemorative design appearing alongside figural elements that belong to another. A coin that tells two stories at once. A coin that exists at the intersection of two historical moments, bridging them in a way that was never intended and can never be replicated. And if the transitional die merger were the only extraordinary thing about this coin, it would already be one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era. But it is not the only extraordinary thing, because the finest known specimens of this coin also exhibit a spectacular rotated die error, a condition where the reverse die was not properly seated during the transition process and was slightly rotated from its correct orientation, causing the reverse design to appear at an angle relative to the obverse that is dramatically, unmistakably different from the perfectly aligned coin turn rotation that Lincoln cents are supposed to display. On a normal Lincoln cent, if you hold the coin with Lincoln's portrait right side up and then flip it vertically, the reverse design will also be right side up, that is coin turn rotation, the standard for American cents. On the finest known specimens of this 2009 transitional error penny, that rotation is off by an angle that experts have measured and documented, and that is visible, actually visible without any magnification at all, to anyone who knows to look for it. Two errors. A transitional die merger combining elements of two commemorative designs on a single reverse, combined with a rotated die error that announces its presence to the naked eye. on a coin from one of the most historically significant years in the entire 200-year history of the Lincoln cent. A coin that was produced in that extraordinary year of 4 different reverse designs, pure copper collector editions, and the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The very same extraordinary historical context that we explored earlier in this video when we talked about the $395 million specimen, but now producing a completely different era, a completely different story, a completely different coin that stands entirely on its own extraordinary merits. The collector response to confirmed specimens of this coin has been exactly what you would expect given the combination of historical significance and extraordinary rarity. Passionate, competitive, financially aggressive, and ultimately culminating in that $95 million valuation for the finest known example. A valuation that places this coin firmly in the ranks of the most valuable pennies ever identified, ever authenticated, ever traded in the history of American numismatics. And here is the final truth that I want to leave you with today. The truth that ties together everything we have covered in this video, from the $382 million 1967 penny all the way through to this extraordinary $95 million 2009 transitional error. The truth that is the real reason this channel exists and the real reason you should care about every single penny that passes through your hand from this day forward. The coins we have talked about today are not myths. They are not legends. They are not the numismatic equivalent of ghost stories told around a campfire to give collectors a pleasant shiver and send them home entertained, but no different than when they arrived. They are real. They have been found, authenticated, graded, and valued by real professionals using real expertise and real, verifiable methodology. And the people who found them, the people who made the discoveries that led to these extraordinary valuations, were not, for the most part, professional dealers with decades of expertise and high-powered equipment. They were people like you, curious people, attentive people, people who watched videos like this one and decided to take the time, just take the time, to look carefully at the coins they already had, to examine what was already in their possession, to apply the simple, powerful, life-changing act of paying attention to something that most people treat as completely beneath their notice. And some of them found fortunes. Some of them reached into an ordinary container and pulled out something extraordinary. Some of them held a $95 million penny in their hand and had no idea what it was until the moment they looked, really looked, and everything changed. That moment is still available to you. Right now, today, the coins are still out there. The discoveries are still waiting to be made. The jars and the drawers and the old collections and the forgotten coin rolls still hold their secrets, still guard their extraordinary treasures, still wait patiently for the one person who will give them the attention they deserve. So go look. Go find your 1967 pennies and your 1979 pennies and your 2009 pennies and your 1996 D pennies and your 1992 D pennies. Get a loop. Get a good light source. Get comfortable. And look at every single coin with the fresh eyes of someone who understands, truly, deeply, completely understands that the most valuable things in the world sometimes were the most ordinary disguises. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the very end. This has been the Liberty Coins Hub, and we will see you in the next one.